We were sharing a car at the time, and she had to pick me up at my job every day, and she just said I looked like the most miserable person ever. So at that point, I told myself I had to make this freelance thing work. This is what I want to do. I want to shoot video. I've got to make it work somehow, because now I don't have a choice.
What's going on, guys? My name is Ryan Snaadt. It Rhymes with Odd, and you're listening and watching the Rhymes with Odd podcast. In this episode, we are sitting down with my buddy, extra filmmaker extraordinaire, Cole Netten. What's up, Cole?
Oh, nothing much, man. As one filmmaker to another, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Cole's been on the list of people to get in the studio, but we're also in the midst of your extremely busy season, so I appreciate you taking some time to come in and sit down and have a drink with me and talk a little shop here.
Anytime. You need those times when things are busy.
Sure. So Cole's story is very interesting. I think we'll dig into that here first, just so people that don't know who you are. Who are you and what do you do currently?
Yeah, I'm just a freelance videographer, / drone pilot, / grip, / gaffer, whatever you want to call me. Jack of all trades type of thing, but I do mostly shooting and mostly drone stuff here in the Des Moines area of Iowa, but I travel if you want me to. And that's pretty much it, dude. I just shoot anything and everything, commercials, social media, drone stuff, shows. I do a few weddings a year, all over. So that's really what I do.
Super exciting. Yeah, and Cole's one of the first people I met in the industry, in the area, because we had met through some mutual friends and stuff like that. So it's interesting to kind of see where you've went, because there's so many ways you can go with filmmaking,
Totally.
right? You could be camera operator, director, DP, editor, lighting, audio, like whatever. You could just specialize. But what kind of drew you to the shoot? Because you're really leaning a lot more recently. You've just been shooting a lot, right?
Yeah. So, which is what I like to do. I love to shoot and hand the footage off and be done with it. I can edit. Editing's fine. It's not my favorite thing to do. And so, I just came across connections of people who are at agencies who have editors and they need shooters. Hopped on board there. And I think one of the things, too, that they wanted was drone pilot stuff. So hopped on their drone pilot and then could show them that I could shoot on camera as well. And then just kind of became a drone pilot / camera operator for a lot of stuff, people who just want extra people to shoot.
Sure.
So.
No, I love that. So let's jump back in your story a little bit. I think probably a good place to start would be college. So people probably look at you and don't realize that you were a Division I football player. Tell me a little bit about that. How did you end up going to Iowa State and playing football there?
Oh man, I first of all, I'm a kicker, and so it's funny when people find out. I always ask them if they can guess which position I played. And 90% of the time, they guess kicker. So I definitely don't have the NCAA football build.
You're not like 250 gorilla muscle type guy.
Yeah. Not at all. So I did play soccer. I love soccer growing up. And that was kind of where I got my kicking skills. And then in 5th grade, I found a coach in Ankeny who was an incredible kicking coach, started working with him, and the rest is history. Played kicker all through high school, got a scholarship to Iowa State to play kicker.
And was it full ride? Or?
It was full ride.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yep. So I went to Iowa State. It was a no-brainer. Been an Iowa State fan my whole life. So that was super cool. And then played kicker at Iowa State from 2012 to 2016.
That's cool. When you're coming up on your senior year, did you have career aspirations to play at the next level? Were you like, I got to live out my childhood dream of being a Cyclone, and now I'm hanging the cleats up? What was kind of your thought going into graduation?
Yeah, more of the second one, hanging the cleats up. I had a few injuries. I had a knee scope that was tough to get through senior year. But mostly what people don't understand about football is football's fun in high school and when you're a kid. But when you get to the next level, I suppose if you're winning championships, it's still fun, but it's pretty grueling. And I was ready to move on and kind of do something that I really enjoyed to do.
Well, at that level, it's more of a job, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your entire life structured and telling you what to do, where to go, where to be.
It's pretty crazy. Wake up at 6, go to bed at 9 o'clock, and do it all again with minimal breaks throughout the day. And I think there's a lot of people who get stuck in the trying to get to the NFL thing that I didn't want to spend any time in. And so I did have a few, like 1 or 2 teams that reached out. And I just said,
To do like a workout or?
yeah, just, hey, we're looking pro day. Are you going to be at pro day type of stuff? And I was just like, no, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to do it. Appreciate the offer. I'm ready to move on.
That's wild though. Just like get a call from like a NFL pro team, be like, hey, be here at this time. We might give you a professional football kicking job.
Well, they reached out to the kicking coach and the special teams coach at Iowa State. And then I talked to him, and I don't think he was too happy that I didn't even want to try. But I was ready. I was definitely ready to move on and do something that I enjoyed.
Sure. No, it's a super interesting story because on the Goldfinch Athletics podcast, Fitter Every Day, they had, which is hosted here in this room, they had Josh Lentz on, who was also a Cyclone, was on the circuit for 3-4 years.
Exactly.
And to your point, it's a lot of just trying to keep up, and you're on a roster, then you're not, then you're practice squad, then you're not. So props to you for at least being at that tipping point where like you could do it or not, knowing what you wanted to do. So
yeah, and who knows? I may have never made a team ever, but I think taking away the chance of me doing that for years is just I didn't want to do it.
Sure.
A lot of people think I was crazy to say no for a big chance at money, but I really don't care.
Sure. Well, what's an average kicker get as an NFL player these days? Like,
well,
a couple 100,000, or are they getting like million? I mean, like some of the best ones are probably getting
best
millions.
ones do, but you got to be in the league for a while. Minimum is 400,000. So
not bad.
Not bad at all.
Not bad.
I'd be a backup kicker on a team.
Sure. I don't even know if kickers. They probably just carry a punter and a kicker, and the punter's got to be your backup because they don't have the salary cap to pay a bunch more people.
Exactly.
Super interesting. No, and I think it's cool though because like there were obviously pros and cons to being a Division I kicker. When you win big. When you lose, everyone hates you. Talk to me a little about how that kind of messed with your psyche and how that's turned you into the man you are today.
Yeah. For the most part, kicking has made life easy after college because of what you just talked about. I think some of the most difficult times had come through college football. So I've been in front of millions of fans and I've made game-winning kicks, and I've been in front of millions of fans and I've missed game-winning kicks. And I think everything with life outside of that is just, it doesn't feel near as stressful or as hard as that was. And so when I talk to people who get on set and they're anxious about how things are going to go, what if something happens, and I'm like, man, I've been in the situation where something happens and tens of thousands of people just hate you. So I get on set and I'm like, what's the worst that could happen?
You mess up your line and you say it again.
Totally. and I would say kicking's about 80% mental and 20% physical. If you can master the mental, then you've got it, and it's easy to learn the rest. I've seen some of the best kickers ever at camps. I'm talking huge legs, like studs, cannot get out in a field and make a kick in front of people.
They just get stage fright?
They just get stage fright. They just cannot do it.
Sure.
And it's ruined their career.
Sure.
And so I think being a kicker was tough, fun, but has given me all the opportunity that I have today. And it's made, there's a lot of times where things will be tough in life. Like I'll get up and tend to my child who's crying at night, and I'm like, well, at least I'm not up doing a workout right now, So it puts things in perspective, and it's really helped, I don't want to say make life easier, but it has going through that.
Sure, that's great. So transitioning out of college, you decided to forego the NFL to do what for your first job? What did you end up going into for your first gig?
So before my first job, I took about a year off, and I just played video games. I was lazy. I did whatever I wanted because it was the first time in a long time that I was able to do that. And my wife was supporting me and her on a teacher's salary while I basically did nothing. I was burned out, Didn't want to work out, didn't want to get up early, didn't want to do anything. So I had this phase of video games and eating terrible, and it was great. It was the best year of my life and also the worst year of my life because I had no purpose.
Sure.
So then I'm like, all right, I got to start making some money. So then I just started looking at jobs, and obviously I wanted to go in the video stuff, and I couldn't find an agency, I couldn't find a marketing company, I couldn't find a video studio who was hiring, who wanted to hire. The one thing that was tough about football is I could get zero experience during college that anybody outside in the real world wanted because I couldn't hold the job while I played football.
Sure. Your best bet's finding a huge Cyclones fan to be like,
Exactly.
I loved you in that bowl game. Here's a job, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, which I never found.
Sure.
Because, I wanted to be in a specific industry and, I don't know if whatever. I just couldn't find one. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll broaden my horizons and find something. And somebody reached out, somebody found me and asked if I'd be interested. I'm like, do I get paid to do it? Then I'm in, So I interviewed for it, got the job, and I was a recruiter for a company. Basically, big companies would hire us to find employees for them that fit job descriptions. And so I would look for back-end website developers, things like that, people who knew JavaScript and I don't know, CCS,
Python,
CSS.
or
Yeah,
other
exactly, all
weird
that
words
stuff.
that mean languages in the coding world.
Bingo. And so I had to sit in a chair in a suit and talk to call 40 people a day and say, hey, we got this job opportunity. You look like a good candidate, scour the web, all this kind of stuff. And absolutely hated every second of it. The only reason I took the job is because I had to start making money. My wife was on a teacher's salary, supporting both of us. And I'm like, I need to start pulling my weight here. We started talking about getting out of debt, all this kind of stuff. So I said, yeah, let's do it. And after about 3 weeks, I just up and quit the job without even telling my wife. Couldn't do it anymore. So this is miserable. I'm sitting here. I'm getting fatter than I am. I'm sweating in a suit. I hate wearing suits. I hate talking to people. I'm doing everything I hate. Company was great. The people I worked with were awesome. I felt terrible because I let everybody down. They spent 2 weeks training me, and I lasted a week. So I got 1, maybe 2 paychecks, and then I pieced out. I quit so early that my manager was like, hey, you don't even need to come in tomorrow because there's nothing for us to transfer over to anybody. You don't even need it 2 weeks because you haven't even gotten far enough.
You have no responsibilities that have made an impact yet.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Quit. And so my wife knew I quit without even me telling her. We were sharing a car at the time, and she had to pick me up at my job every day. And she just said I looked like the most miserable person ever. So should have told her, but she was supportive of me quitting anyway. So at that point, I told myself I have to make this freelance thing work. This is what I want to do. I want to shoot video. I've got to make it work somehow because now I don't have a choice. I know I'm not going to have a regular job, and no other company is going to hire me, so freelance it is. Here we go. Then I started doing weddings with the camera I did have. Started off super cheap. First wedding I did was $500.
Nice.
And then from there, I just started posting work, got a drone, started posting some of that stuff, and then slowly, after reaching out to a few people, getting some things on my profile, I started getting word of mouth things, making connections, and then all of that grew to where I am today.
Sure. That's super cool, though. And I think there's a lot of people that can probably resonate with that story of your first job that you just feel like you have to do. You just got to get out there. But I feel like a lot of people end up stuck in that same mindset, their whole career, that I have this thing I want to do, but it's not lucrative enough, or it won't make enough money, or I don't have the qualifications, and then they just stay. Mm-hmm. What do you tell those people that are maybe they know they should make that change, but they just don't have the heart to do it, or they can't look themselves in the mirror and do it?
Well, there's a few things. I think my situation was a little bit unique, as in it was my wife and I right out of college. I didn't have any kids to take care of. We didn't need life insurance. All this, she had that covered in her job. So it was easy for me because I just got a job for 3 weeks. It's not like I was bringing a lot into the family anyway. Like I had a year off and we figured it out then. So it was kind of easy for me to just quit and figure something else out. And I understand if I was in a job today, it'd be a lot harder for me to quit.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially with having multiple children, a mortgage,
exactly.
a wife, it's harder to piece out from that.
So I understand the people who are in that situation and need to provide for their family and want stability, because freelance is not a staple at all. I don't think I've ever had the same month ever. But I would say and I'll have to get you the exact quote, but there's this thing I heard about, and it's some fallacy or whatever, and it's talking about how if things were a little bit worse in your life, then you would make the change to make them better. The most dangerous place to be in is where things are just okay enough. So if your relationship is okay, I'll stay in my relationship. It's not great, but it's not bad. Mm-hmm. My job is okay. I could find something better, but it's not bad. If that job was a little bit worse and you quit to find something so much better, it's almost as if the okay is trapping you from finding something a lot better. And Absolutely. So my job was bad. It was fine. It just wasn't for me. So I had to quit, and I had to find something better, and my life is 100 times better because of it. So I would say, take a look at your life, and if you're in a place where things are okay, I would think about transitioning into something that could be a lot better, because Absolutely. that okay will hold you down for the rest of your life. And I think a couple things to do with that is get an emergency fund. Get up to 6 months of expenses. You can always go back. I mean, there are tons of places hiring right now. A lot of job opportunities out there to make it work. And so I would say get yourself a little emergency fund, try things out, maybe start something on the side, see how it goes. Once you a lot of people say once you can replace your income with what you're doing, then you should make the transition. I think once you can get like halfway there, if you can get halfway there, you can totally get all the way there at some point. Once you get halfway, quit. Get on with it. You'll just be so much happier. I think the toughest thing about freelance is the inconsistency, but the best part about freelance is just the freedom you have. One, working for yourself. Two, I had donuts with my kids and my wife this morning because I just didn't have to go in, normal. And there's no ceiling to it. You can work as hard as you want. I would even argue that freelance is more stable than a regular job because it all depends on you. If I wasn't making any money, I could go out and find enough people to hire me to film whatever to make the month work. I promise you, within 2 or 3 days, I could find enough money.
Well, and all the onus is on you, right?
Exactly.
If you have no money that month, you can't point at coworkers or your boss or what. I didn't get my bonus. It's like, look in the mirror, dude. You're the reason that you can't get it. And I think that's a powerful sentiment for sure.
So, I mean, the best thing I've ever done is quit that job and go into freelance. And I was lucky enough to start early enough in my job where I wasn't stuck. I didn't get a raise. I didn't make good money. I didn't get it was I don't know what the percent was, but it was a little bit of a commission job. I didn't get any commission. So I didn't see any benefits of making more money, but I also didn't care. And so I don't know. The best thing you can do is just jump.
Sure.
Because then you have no choice. You got to make it work. And if you don't make it work, then you can just go back.
Sure. That was the thing my wife told me when I was preparing to leave, because I was having a complete breakdown about everything. She's like, Ryan, on the side income, you've been making like 3 times more than your salary. Just leave. And I'm like, well, blah, blah. And she's like, if you don't make any money for the next 6 months, you can go just get another job or go back. They probably take you back. It's like, really got no reason to not go. And Travis, we had Travis on 2 episodes ago, and he was talking about how he couldn't charge for his consulting outside of work until he made the jump. So he had to go from high-paying job to nothing. I think I was definitely more in the middle where I kind of just like the boats butted up and I kind of stepped over, where you were kind of like, you're in like a boat with a huge hole in the bottom. Like, you're like, I'll just swim. Like, I'll figure it out. So
we're totally different in regards to personality-wise that way. So what was the final factor for you to jump?
For me, it was similar to your point. I was comfortable enough that I kept justifying like, well, if I leave, it's going to be hard for a while. And I mean, it's easy right now. And it's like, once I made that decision of like you said, your life could be 10 times better if you just make that decision. And I'm not saying anybody listening to this should like quit their job today, but if you know there's this thing that you need to do or want to do that's going to get you to like this happiness level that you can't reach now, do it. If it's like, we've had people on that have had to leave marriages before, that they're in a toxic relationship and they try and try and try. They know it'll never work, but they keep staying because it's like, well, it's good enough, that type of thing. We've had people with their jobs. We have people they need to move in their physical location to like, I need to be in LA so I can get job opportunities, but I'm too scared to do it. Whatever it is, like you just have to kind of make that decision. I always do the what's the worst that could happen game. Sometimes that blows up in my face though. I'm like, well, I could die. Oh, I could go bankrupt. Oh, this could happen,
Yeah, that's true. I don't think I've ever had a what's the worst that could happen, I could die moment.
Sure.
But I guess bankrupt.
Sure.
Bankrupt could happen.
Yeah, this last week we were hiking in Zion, and there were some 1,000-foot drops. My friend's like, you got to see this view. And I'm like glued to the canyon. Yeah. Nope, not going over there. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah. I could slip and die. But that's kind of interesting. But I think the career stuff's very interesting because along the path, and similarly to myself and my wife, you and your wife started down this kind of financial exploration path. Mm-hmm. Walk me through a little bit about how that played into you going freelance. And I think you guys had paid off a ton of debt while Kate was the only one working. Tell me a little bit about how that went down.
Yeah, so that had nothing to do with me leaving my job. And that was what was so freeing about leaving the job is I wasn't tied down financially or anything. And we had met with Travis. Travis was our financial coach. And we had this plan to pay off our debt within 15 months. We had $42,000 of debt, 30-something in college, and $11,000 in a car. Now, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship, so it was all my wife's debt, but we were paying it off together. And I remember I quit my job. We still had a ton of debt. And I quit my job, and I know Travis was not very happy with me because that was whole part of the plan was like, hey, I need a job. We can help make this go faster. But after quitting my job and starting freelance, I started making more money than I ever did at my job, and it was easy for us to start paying that off. And we had a goal, motivation behind it, and we paid off $42,000 in 11 months. And we went very hard in those 11 months. So hard, in fact, we took the next year off and made no financial progress anywhere and just kind of enjoyed the money because we were pretty burnt out from going that hard.
It sounds like a trend in your life, just insane intensity, and then like I need to just take a long vacation.
That was what I was taught in football. I mean, it's not a marathon. It is like ace. Every workout you did was high intensity. Sprint and then rest, sprint and then rest. Heavy weights and then rest, heavy weights and rest. It wasn't like lightweight, do a bunch of reps. It wasn't a marathon type of thing. Because that's just how the game is played.
Sure.
And so that's how I just did things, personality-wise. But quitting my job had nothing to do. If it was a factor in quitting my job, I never would have quit my job because I knew I would be getting us in trouble.
Sure.
To not having an income.
Sure.
Trying to pay that off. So
you had, it was $42,000 in 11 months?
Yep.
What did that feel like when you paid that last bill off?
Oh, one of the most freeing things ever. Before I even met with Travis, I just thought it was just going to be there and we would pay it off until whatever, we die. And he was like, yeah, you guys can get this done in 15 months. I'm like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that. Like, it just never told you could do that.
Sure.
And so that motivated us. Just having an end goal, knowing when we could be done, and then taking that money and putting it towards something else was a huge factor for me. In fact, the biggest motivator for me was I told my wife, if we do this before, or my wife said, if we do this before this date, we can go on a trip to New Zealand. And so that was all the motivation I needed. It was the dream place for me to ever go. I'm like, done deal. Like, I'll sacrifice everything to get this done. If we go to, we took a 3-week trip to New Zealand. So we got it done, took our trip, and it was just the best 3 weeks of my life. And it was the coolest thing ever. And that was the real motivator behind it, getting to be able to do that. Because that was the only time we would ever be able to take that trip. And so I didn't have a choice but to get it done before then.
Sure. Well, I think having that motivation, whatever it is, whether it's buy a new car, go on a trip, be able to switch school districts, move into a new house, whatever, like having that is you need the thing pulling you towards the change, but you need the thing behind you that's like pushing you to the change at the same time. Because if you don't have both of those working at the same time, then you won't make the change. To your point earlier, it's like, why did I jump? It's like I didn't have both things working at the same time. Because in our story, the reason I didn't leave was because I was making a bunch of money from my freelance business, but I wasn't taking any ownership stroke. I didn't take any profit out. I'd pay the taxes and I'd leave it in the business. And then once Paige and I had a financial plan, like here's what we want in the next couple of years, then it was like, oh, well, now I need to kick it in on this business on the side and make a bunch of extras so we can do the things we want to do. And then when the dust cleared, I was like, holy crap, like there's no reason for me not to do this full time. So,
right.
But yeah, that's super cool. So I feel like do you know where we first met? Was it through Travis or was it?
No idea, honestly. We
Okay.
met a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's probably why I don't remember
Sure.
where we first met. But did I recommend Travis to you?
Yep.
So we didn't meet through Travis. We met before Travis.
Yeah, I think maybe it's social media or mutual friends. Because I know, I think I've shot with Kyle before.
Okay.
Fellow kicker from Iowa State, who's also a filmmaker. So I think I just knew a bunch of other people. But interestingly enough, you kind of turned us on to Travis because I reached out and I was like, this sounds fake. Like,
dude,
it sounds like you're selling some MLM or some kind of like something like too good to be true. I'm like, what is going on? You're like, no, this is like the real deal. So when I found out you guys could do it when you're living off of Kate's salary and that's it, I'm like, okay, if they could do it, we could definitely do it. Circumstances were a little different for both of us, but very similar places in life and everything. And I just think it's a huge blessing that it happened to both of us before we had kids and a mortgage and stuff. Because when you're 35, 40 and you try to make these huge life decisions and changes, the ripple effects are a lot bigger than when it's just you and your spouse and you're in your early 20s and live in a shack, hole in the wall place.
Totally.
Like, it's different.
Totally. Especially if you've got like a nice house and a car payment and things like that. It's hard to go back on that stuff. It's hard to get rid of a car. It's hard to downsize your home. Like we had a small apartment at Ames, so we didn't have anything. We were still basically living. We're like, just live the college lifestyle a few more years. But even if you are in that situation, it's totally worth it to do.
Sure. So then after you guys got out of debt, you're growing your business. I know Kate left the teaching profession. Walk me through a little, did this also play into that where it's like, you don't have to do these certain things. What do you want to do or what things are drawing you that you're interested in?
Yeah, totally. Her goal was always to be a stay-at-home mom. So once things picked up and I met some people, made connections, started getting on jobs, things like that, we were like, hey, she got pregnant and we knew she was going to say no to her job, her teaching job. Didn't like it. Teaching was great. Teaching's tough nowadays. So we're
a lot of red tape anymore, right? Government kind of tells you how you got to work and what to do,
and so that was pretty easy for us to say, yeah, we're out. And that wasn't really a financial decision either because financially it doesn't make any sense. I didn't have a huge income. I had enough to support us, but it wasn't like we weren't making any strides with it. And so we were just like, I'm going to grow every year, hopefully. And from then, we want you to do this, so do it. Like, it's not, we'll figure it out. It was one of those things where, I wanted her to be the stay-at-home mom for our child much more than I wanted to make extra money at another job and then send our child to daycare.
Sure.
It was just a lot more important. For us, value-wise, it was a lot more important anyway. And so we just did it. I mean, just jumped. It was pretty easy. She's kind of like you, more reserved. Oh, I don't know about this, financially wise, what are we going to do? I'm like, who cares? This is what you want to do. We'll figure it out.
Right. You're like,
I'm
come
not
on,
worried.
let's jump.
Exactly. Just jump. I basically pushed her over the edge. But it was an easy decision for her to leave. And so from there it was, and she picked up side jobs and stuff, coaching dance team at Iowa State and here in Ankeny and things like that. And so she didn't have a zero income, but she did a little bit at home and a little bit dance studio at night and stuff. So
Sure, that's cool. Well, I think it's interesting, like the circumstances will change as life evolves too, because you guys have 2 little ones now. So it's like her being home. I mean, we have a second one on the way in January, and I'm looking at like the daycare costs. Like we have an in-home nanny at our house that she comes to our place, and it's like, okay, as things change or evolve, like you have to just really know where do you want to spend your where are you finding the most value from where you spend your money each month. I think that's a big thing a lot of people don't think about. Whether it's like, oh, put it on my credit card, or like, hey, all of us are going to Nashville for a bachelorette party. Like, it's my 6th one this year. Like, let's book some plane tickets. I have a couple of friends like that where they just have a million friends getting married. What are some of the pieces of advice you give to like other people that are maybe a couple years younger than you that are kind of going into these like kind of the early 20s, like everyone's doing crazy stuff and not really taking their finances seriously? What do you tell those people?
Well, I think you nailed it on the head, and it's to find what you value most in what you want in your future and what you have. So like example, my wife and I don't value our home near as much as other people would. Our home is like 15 to 20% of our income. I know a lot of people whose home is 35 to 55% of their income.
I can imagine spending half the money I make in a month just to like
I can't
pay the mortgage payment. Like that's wild.
That's what I'm saying. And so that's not where our value is. If your value is there, then that's fine. Our value is investing in our retirement. Our value is investing in our children's education. Our value is investing in our children's retirement. Our value is not having a car payment, things like that, because we have values in other places. Now, if your value is in having a car payment because you like nice cars, then that's you. It's just not me. So find those values that you have. And just more values are setting a little bit aside for my business to grow and things like that. Do we want to travel together? We got sinking funds for everything you could ever think of. And so I think that's the big thing. And don't be afraid to say no to things like 6 bachelor parties a year. Like that's nuts. Bachelor parties have gotten out of hand. I went to Okoboji and everybody had to pay like $100 for the weekend. Now you're paying, I don't even know, $500 to $1,500 for a weekend in Nashville or Florida or whatever. Well, I just don't know when things got so insane. Don't be afraid to say no, or at least maybe go a day later. You don't have to spend, don't have to spend lodging, a little bit extra food. Everybody's probably drank up the first night, so you don't have to spend near as much on alcohol. Just don't be afraid. Somebody may stand up to you and say, hey, I can't afford that. This is insane.
Sure. Well, and we've had family members of ours that try to do destination weddings. And I remember one of them happened when I was in college. I was making like maybe $500 a month. Like I was working at Target part-time, couple hours a week, and they were like, yeah, we're going to Jamaica. And I looked at the tickets, all in cost for like a college student was like $1,500 for me and for my girlfriend, now wife at the time. And we were just like, we can't do that. Like we don't have enough money to do that. And they got all mad. And then the whole family said the same thing because like everyone had to pay that. And they're like, we just can't afford to go. And then they're like, well, we can't afford it. And we only get it free if like 10 other people come. And I'm like, well, that's your problem right there.
Yeah.
If you're not even willing to pay it for your own wedding, why would 10 other people want to?
That's the thing. And Travis did a good episode about keeping up with the Joneses, which is something that I definitely struggle with. We have a lot of friends who have nice things, and sometimes it's like, oh, dude, I want a nice car. I want a car payment. I want a nicer home. But you have to think there are some people who are looking at you and are saying the same thing. And so if you stand up and say, hey, you may be the Joneses to somebody else. And so if you stand up and say, hey, we're not going to do this, then somebody else might go, oh, thank you. Somebody else isn't doing that. I feel like I don't have to do it either. So that's just something to think of, too.
I love that. And recently, because I just got my commercial space in February, and before that, I did a lot of that where I was looking around. I'm like, whoa, look at this person's space. Look at that. I would just go talk to them, and then you find out, and you peel the layers back, and you're like, holy crap, your overhead's like more than I make in an entire month. Like, but I don't want to do that. Or I was looking at like buying versus renting because I'm like, oh, I'd want to like own the property. And then you realize like how expensive commercial real estate is. It's like, okay, maybe, like you said, maybe it's not as glamorous as you think until you start getting into the weeds and you figure out kind of what am I willing to spend money on or put all my eggs in one basket for. So, yes, that's super crazy. So as you're transitioning into this like freelance shooter role, what lights you up about your work now today? Because you said like your previous job, you're just like slugging through the mud. Now I would say you're probably not inclined to like take a whole year off and just play video games anymore.
No, I'm not.
What lights you up about your work now that gets you excited and fired up to go and do what you do?
Oh, dude, I've always loved videos, and I've always loved making stupid videos with my buddies back in high school. That's where it all started. Got my first camera out of high school, and just like shooting things brings me joy. Putting together a story, editing it, and then pushing it out. All of that is just super fun to me. And so I've just taken that and ran with it. And I don't know if it's specifically if it's getting a cool shot, making things look super cool, telling somebody's really cool story. It's all over the place. Figuring things out is fun. Not doing the same thing every day is super fun. Not having a ceiling as a freelancer is super fun because then you just work. Whatever you make, it's because of you, you know? Just being able to have free time with my family is super fun. It's just everything about it is fun. Now, there are jobs where you're like, oh, this job sucks. Like recording presentations, not fun. But I'm still doing what I like to do.
Sure. And
I would much rather do that than any other job.
Sure.
So there are definitely pay your bill type of work, and there's definitely creative work. I'm way more on the creative work, but I still enjoy the pay your bill type of work because I'm still operating a camera. There's something about operating a camera that I just really enjoy.
Sure. Do you ever think you would transition into more stuff like Hollywood style? Like if they made a movie in Iowa or if there was a job that took you somewhere else to like work on a movie set compared to like a commercial production? Is that something that's interesting to you?
No. I've been on a movie before. And it was fun. It was a great experience.
Just came out recently, right?
It did just come out recently. I shot it, I helped shoot it 3 years ago.
Do you get residuals if we shout it out? Do you get any money extra? No? Okay.
No, unfortunately.
I'm like, gotta get on the SAG checks, man.
And it was fun. It was great. It was grueling. And it was 12-hour days for a month straight.
Wow.
With about half as much as you make a day. And so it was cool to say I've been on a movie. Would I ever do it again? I don't know. Probably not.
Sure. I'm sure depending on the movie, circumstantially, it's a lot different, right? If you're shooting a couples retreat where you're in like Bora Bora the whole time and your downtime's on the beach, that's a little different than if you're shooting like a docuseries in a prison in like Russia or something.
Exactly.
The situation's different.
I would love to shoot a documentary too. That would be really cool to be on.
Sure.
But no, I just like social media has brought a new way to look at video. And so just creatively through social media, that's really fun to do. Like the workout stuff. And I shot for my friends at Grandview Beef. And that's just out on an Iowa farm with sunrises and just a bunch of cool stuff. It's just the experiences you get on different locations is really cool.
Sure. Well, and I've shot one, I wouldn't even call it a documentary. It's like a little mini doc for a company, and it was for in the insurance industry. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, we've hit 5 other people up, and they're just like not into this project. They're like, it's too boring, whatever. What's your interest level on a scale of like 0 to 100? And I was like, probably like 60% interested. Like, the subject matter is not interesting, but the story, I think I could try to bring the story to life. And if we interview the right people, ask them the right questions, then it's interesting. And that's what we did. And it was like, I kind of poured myself into it. I was like, oh, this is really cool to kind of, and I got like a guy that was an ex SWAT team leader to just bawl his eyes out. And he was like this toughest dude ever, but I asked the right questions and I got him to cry. The way home, I was just like fist bumping. I'm like, yes, like I did it. Like there's a little bit of that creative itch where like you can, dig into that, where if it's you, maybe it's like you're trying a new camera for the first time, or you have to get this cool shot you've never done, or you've seen it before. Like you said, every day is a little bit different, which kind of keeps it interesting.
Yeah. Plus flying the drone. I love flying the drone, and it's like a real life video game. And I've loved video games growing up. And my parents never thought I would amount to anything playing video games all the time, and now I always make fun of them for it.
Sure.
So look at me, I got a controller in my hand.
Sure. There you go.
It's fun, but I love doing it.
Sure. What's the current drone you're running these days?
I got the Mavic 3.
Oh, it's nice. I've seen
the
it.
first one.
Yeah.
There's like 2 more that came out after it, and I got it like a year and a half ago.
Sure.
That's the worst thing about camera technology. Been thinking about getting the Mavic 3 Pro. But then the Air 3 just came out, so I might wait for the Air 3S, or who knows, dude.
I know you were looking at one point at the Inspire, like the big ones. The Mavic you're talking about is the size like a toaster. Yeah. This one's like, I don't know, the size of a table. Yeah. Like a small like conference table.
A little bit bigger than half this table. But it's $20,000. Mm-hmm. I don't have $20,000 to spend on a drone. Maybe if I was a full-time drone pilot, just doing drone stuff for commercials and movies and things, then it would probably be worth it. But in Iowa, when you get a good 5 months to fly, 6 months to fly the drone in good weather, you just don't, it's hard to get enough work to justify that price. And most clients, 99% of clients, don't care. They get good enough footage out of the Mavic 3 than they would the Inspire. They're not going to want 8K RAW out of a drone.
Sure.
And so I would love to have it, trust me. But, again, their priorities, bought a minivan for my family instead of a drone. So that's where I'm at.
That thing could fly. It doesn't have wings, though.
Yeah.
Hit the bumps really hard. You might get some air. That's exciting, though. So tell me a little bit about, like, what's next for you? What's, like, the next 5-year, 10-year? Have you guys thought out further enough where, like, do you want to be in Ankeny? Do you want to be doing what you're doing? Like, what's kind of the big picture goal for you in the next 5 years?
Man, people don't like that I say this, but I don't have goals, and I hate goals. And I don't have a idea for what I'm doing tomorrow. I mean, I've got to shoot tomorrow, so I got to do that.
I got to fly out there tomorrow.
But I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 1-year plan. I don't have a 10-year plan, because every time I plan, it never works out. And I'm just going with the flow. Each day I do what I like, and if I start to like something more, then I'm going to do more of that. And so location-wise, being in Ankeny is great because that's where my family's at. So with kids, I love being here. But if something were to call me somewhere else, then I'd go there. That'd be something my wife and I would talk about. But I'm just gonna shoot. I'll shoot till the day I die. And
sound like a rapper out here, dude. Shooting till the day I die.
But that's my plan. I take it day by day, week by week, month by month. But outside of that, who knows? Because maybe I get asked to be on a documentary for 6 months somewhere, and maybe I take that job. Maybe I don't. My goal isn't to be like a Hollywood producer or a documentary filmmaker. It's just to shoot content, and whatever that content is, I'm here to shoot it.
Sure. That's exciting, man. Well, anything else? Where can people find you if they want to find out more about you online or potentially look at you for some production work?
Oh, yeah. Instagram, Swoll Netten, SWOLLNETTEN, and then my website's just colenetten.com. And you can reach me there, find my email on there, or DM me on Instagram, either way.
Sure, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on the pod, and I think your story is definitely a unique one, and it's something that I was wanting to have told because coming from a Division I football player to where you're at now, it's like not the normal path that a person would take. So thanks so much for coming on, man.
Love every second of it. And if you're thinking about jumping, just jump. You won't regret it.
Sure. Love the message, man. Awesome. Well, you guys heard it here first, folks. You're listening to the Rhymes with Odd podcast. My name's Ryan Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.